everybody, and welcome to Week 10 predictions for this NFL season. Last week I went 10-5. Hopefully, we'll go for another big positive week like that. Before we get right into it, I want to quickly say subscribe if you're new, be greatly appreciated, and leave a like whether you're new or coming back for another appearance. Glad to have y'all here. So let's jump right into it with Thursday Night Football. As the Cincinnati Bengals at 4-5 make a trip over to Baltimore to play the Ravens, who are 6-3 and 6-point favorites. I really like how Cincy played the past few weeks. They've been playing a lot better as the season's progressing. The players have been getting healthier, and overall, they've just been playing more like Cincy. That was the thing with Cincy the past few years, and even this season, was they love to get off to slow starts. Meanwhile, Baltimore is off to a pretty slow start themselves at 0-2, and have quickly bounced this one around for a massive win streak before they fell 2 weeks ago to Cleveland. Baltimore did get a nice bounce back win last week against Denver, who Baltimore completely destroyed Denver, so I'm not too surprised about that. The last time these two teams played in Cincy a few weeks back, the game went to overtime and was a game-winning field goal by Justin Tucker. This one being in Baltimore, I don't see it being an overtime game, but I could still see this being a close game. Nonetheless, I am going to go with Baltimore to win this game. Again, there's just the better team this season. They were able to fix their mistakes that they had early on a lot quicker, and thus they're in the driver's seat of their own season a lot more so than Cincy is. So next up, the Germany game. The New York Giants at 2-7, also 5-point favorites, make the trip to Carolina, play Carolina, who are 2-7. This game, I have zero, and I legit mean zero proper ideas of how this game is going to play out. Both teams just have been playing very weird this season. The Giants have been up and down of a mess of a team. Daniel Jones finally got a passing touchdown at home last week for the first time in like 3 years or so. Carolina got a big time win last week against New Orleans, but even in that, they didn't fully play up to their potential, I feel. This game is decided by a coin toss, and when I say that, I mean legit. I simulated a coin toss 100 times for this and picked whichever one it landed on the majority of the time. And that was the New York Giants. So I'd have the Giants winning this game, but this game could legit go either way, and I'm just having faith in the coin. So next up, the New England Patriots at 2-4 make the trip to Chicago, who are 4-4 and 6-point favorites. Chicago were riding hot until past their bye week when they lost 2 straight. Of course, those 2 straight were very different losses, with the Washington loss being on a Hail Mary, and the loss to Arizona last week being kind of just them getting dominated. New England, a tough loss to Tennessee last week in overtime, and this is also a very similar game to what Cincy and Baltimore could be, where it feels like one team is a lot better than the other, but who knows, this could be a really close game. Nonetheless, this game is in Chicago. Chicago has been the better team this season than New England, and at moments, they have played complete football. But still, Chicago is that weird team where I don't fully know what to expect from them this season, and I'm hoping that they make improvements for next season, but that's a different thing entirely. But I am going to go with Chicago to win this one. And also in part because they're falling behind the rest of that division, and they need a win badly. And I think they'll get it here against New England. Next up, the Buffalo Bills at 7-2 and only 4-point favorites make the trip over to Indianapolis, who are 4-5. Flacco played all right last week, but this Colts team is still far, far away from being a legit contender that some Colts fans probably thought they had a chance to be this season. In part because Anthony Richardson has not been playing the greatest, and now Joe Flacco, he's been in and out of the starting role, and he'll get everything going again, but I'm not sure when that will be. Buffalo, a very close win against Miami last week, came down to a 61-yard field goal in a game that Buffalo's offense showed up and played really well, but their defense was kind of on the back burners, with them letting up only 3 incompletions to Miami's passing offense and a lot of rushing yards combined between Achane, Mostert, and Jalen Wright. Jonathan Taylor could have a great day in this one, but at the same time, Buffalo's run defense could show up like it did against Seattle and hold them to 30 yards total. I really don't know. All I know is Josh Allen is on the opposing sideline of Indianapolis, and that man will win games in any way possible, so I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills to win this one. Again, Josh Allen is just an absolute beast of a quarterback, and it's very hard to go against him. Next up, the Denver Broncos at 5-4 travel to the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs, who are 8-point favorites. KC, what a win against Tampa. That was a very close one, But at the same time, it was an overtime win against a team that is a quality opponent. Meanwhile, Denver, the tough loss to Baltimore, we talked about it a little bit earlier. And overall, I like what Denver is building this season, but this is also clearly not their season. Meanwhile, this is very clearly looking like KC's season. Again, even with the offense having slow games, the defense is playing incredibly well. And we saw what Denver's offense was able to do against a good defense last week. And for the most part, this season as well, Denver's offense has struggled against really, really good defenses like Kansas City has. But at the same time, Kansas City's offense has just struggled in general this season. But I don't think that's really going to matter here. And I know Denver beat KC last year, but I was in Denver. This is in Kansas City. I'm going to go with the Chiefs to win this one and continue their undefeated season. And I am hoping that they lose at some point, and I will gladly be wrong this week. Next up, the Atlanta Falcons at 6-3 and 3.5 point favorites make the trip to New Orleans, who are 2-7. I am shocked this point spread is as close as it is, considering that New Orleans just lost to the Saints and are on a 7-game losing streak. Like, damn. So Dennis Allen was fired. I don't know how much that's really going to impact this season for them or the remainder of the season. But I do like who their interim's going to be. He was an interim. He was a part of Miami's staff a while back, and I did like how he coached when he was with Miami. And for the most part, he's had the defense playing well this season. But speaking of the defense, Marshawn Lattimore was traded at the deadline, so he's no longer a part of that secondary. And they're going against an Atlanta team that will 100% be able to pick apart any weak point you have on your defense. They've been doing it all season long to teams, even in losing efforts. So I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons to win this one. Again, it took a few weeks, but the Falcons eventually figured out who they are, and they finally got the chemistry going. And once that happened, it was going to be very tough to beat this team, and they are showing it. So I have them winning this one. The San Francisco 49ers at 4-4 and 5.5 point favorites make the cross-country trip as they play Tampa Bay, who are 4-5. I am shocked San Francisco is favored in this one. They are coming off of their bye week, but at the same time, I don't know. San Francisco has been a weird team this season. There is the possibility they get CMC back this week, which would be massive for them. But at the same time, typically the first week of a player being back from injury is going to be a little bit slower of a week, at least through the first half. And meanwhile, Tampa, they just played KC really close without their top two receiving options, and I still do really like what Tampa has to offer. This is going to be a tough one. It's definitely going to be a close game, probably one possession. I am going to go with Tampa to win this one because I do have faith in Cade Otton, in Baker Mayfield, in that defense, in Bucky Irvin, Rashard White. That team is still a really well-playing team. And again, they're going to need to catch up to Atlanta at some point, and this will be a good game to get that started. Next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers at 6-2 make the trip to Washington, who are 7-2 and 3-point favorites. This is game of the week. Steelers made a big trade to get Mike Williams at the deadline. Washington got Marshawn Lattimore. So it's going to be a good battle to see, and especially how many reps both of them get respectively. But this is going to be a great game. The Steelers' great defense against the Commanders' high-flying offense, who have scored on 66% of their drives this season. Crazy numbers, but that's Washington for you. And then on the other side is the Steelers' offense, who would love to be able to go dink and dunk down the field and pick you apart against a Washington defense that can play well, but at the same time, they've had their moments of being kind of underperforming this season. This is going to be a great game. It's just going to be a great game. In Washington, I have to give that a little bit of an edge there, but at the same time, I do love what both sides bring to the party, particularly the Steelers' defense and the Washington offense. I'm going to go with the Commanders in this one. I believe Brian Robinson is set to play in this game, and that will be a massive difference for this Washington ground game, which, if they're going to beat Pittsburgh, they're going to need to be able to run the ball effectively, so I expect Robinson to have a good chunk of carries. I expect Jaden Daniels to be able to do a good job in this one in some capacity, so give me Washington. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings at 6-2 and 4-point favorites make the trip to Jacksonville, who are 2-7. Minnesota broke their 2-game losing streak last weekend with a win against the Colts on Sunday Night Football, and now they get Jacksonville, who just lost to Philly and had one of the craziest hurdles happen against them. I've mentioned this in a previous video in the Power Rankings of this week. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. But it feels like the magic is starting to fade with Minnesota, and if they want to try and you get some of that magic back. A big time game against Jacksonville is exactly what would happen and exactly what would need to happen for them to kind of rekindle the magic a bit. For as much as I like Sam Darnold, he is starting to play more similar to his Jets years. But we'll see. Jacksonville is a weird defense to go against, and the fact that they have been inconsistent this season, with some games playing really well defensively, like that Miami game in the first week of the season, and other games playing terribly defensively, like their London game against Chicago. I mean, and then Jacksonville's offense is the same boat, where some games are playing decently well and putting up good numbers, like that game against the Colts, or they were in the throwbacks in. And then other games, they're just stinkers offensively, like this game last week against the Eagles, where offensively they didn't do a whole lot. I am going to go with Minnesota to win this one, in part because that defense that Minnesota has is incredible. Even with them being 6-2, it's not because of their defense. Their defense is definitely the highlight of this team. Brian Flores got them playing really well and showcasing that he is a much better defensive coordinator than he is a head coach. So give me the Vikings. The Tennessee Titans at 6-2 make the trip cross country to play the Los Angeles Chargers, who are 5-3 and 7.5-point favorites. The Titans got a good win against the Patriots last week in overtime, but even saying that, a good win doesn't mean the same as other teams' good wins. It's just a weird game they played against New England last week, in part because they gave up that game-tying touchdown as time expired in what was a great play by Drake May, but not a great play by that defense of Tennessee. And they're going against a Chargers team who can beat you through the air with Justin Herbert, as he had a great day last week, or beat you on the ground with J.K. Dobbins, as that's kind of been their more so go-to style this season. Or they can just do both and completely kick your ass. I'm going to go with the Chargers to win this one. Their defense has been playing okay this season, but that offense is really high-flying and is a really good offense against a Tennessee defense that at some moments play great, but for the most part, they fall apart quickly. So yeah, give me the Chargers. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles at 6-2 and 7-point favorites make the trip to Dallas for 3-5 and gonna be without Dak Prescott for a little bit. He was placed on IR, so missing at least 4 weeks, which means it's Cooper Rush's time to shine. Yeah, give me Philly. Philly is finally playing like that elite team that they are, even though most of their games are really confusing wins. They're still winning these games. Their secondary is playing really well with Cooper DeJean making great plays as a rookie. Their offense has really shined the past few weeks with some great moments like Saquon's backwards hurdle and the Devontae Adams touchdown reception against Cincy 2 weeks ago. I really like Philly, but this would be a good game to try and catch up to Washington, but they need to be consistent, and they've been consistent through 2 weeks. Be consistent this third week, and I would feel a lot better about them going forward. So I do have Philly winning that one. Next up, the New York Jets at 3-6 make the trip over to Arizona, a little cross-country trip once again, who are 5-4 and 1-point favorite. The Jets coming off of 10 days rest due to their win against the Texans on Thursday Night Football, in a game that they played well in, at least in the second half. The first half was a different story for sure, and their defense definitely played the Texans well. They're going against Kyler Murray and the Arizona offense, who has had its moments the majority of this season, but then also has had its moments of being meh this season. The same thing goes with Arizona's defense, although they played a great game against Chicago last week. But again, it's a very weird matchup, as both the Cardinals and the Jets have had their moments of in the spotlight and moments to shine. But then they've had a lot more moments where it's just really confusing about how they're going about their team. I do have the Cardinals winning this one, for maybe the only reason being this is in Arizona, and it is really difficult for teams normally to make that cross-country trip and still play to the same level. So yeah, I'm going to go with Arizona. Sunday Night Football, which should be a great game, but Houston's been playing a little weird this season. We have the Detroit Lions at 7-1 and 3.5-point favorites, making a trip to Houston, who are 6-3. This game is going to be fantastic. Even if Houston doesn't play the greatest, which they haven't been this past 2 weeks, they're still a good team that can definitely play the Lions well. But this is the Lions game to lose, because the past 2 weeks, even with Goff not throwing for a whole lot, The ground game is playing well. The defense is playing incredibly. I really love Detroit. They're my favorites this season to win it all at this point, and for a lot of people's favorites. But even before the season, I was saying they could make a run, and they have definitely showed me right. And you can make the argument that they should also be undefeated right now. Their one win was against Tampa in a game that they just didn't play smartly. They made a lot of risky decisions late in that game against Tampa, and hell, even those almost work. This is going to be a great test for Detroit as it's against another high quality team. But at the same time, they just beat the Packers, who were also a high quality team. This is the Lions season, it feels like. So yeah, give me Detroit on Sunday Night Football. Finally, to cap off Week 10, the Miami Dolphins at 2-6 make the cross-country trip as they play the Los Angeles Rams, who are 4-4 and 2.5-point favorites. The Rams are a really good team. I like what I'm seeing from Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford and that whole team, and especially the offense since Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp came back into the fold. So I like what I'm seeing from them. Here's my thing with Miami. This game against Buffalo last week was the best they have played all season. It was a perfect game from every side besides the defense. And even then, the defense still played decently well. And honestly, probably should have been well enough for the win if McDaniel just went for two. But then this whole still kicked a field goal. It was a 61-yard field goal Miami lost on. A career long for Tyler Bass. I really like how the offense played and the style that they played, and the fact that Tua is playing back to his elite level that he can play at. It was really great to see. I am a Dolphin fan, so I'm going to have Miami winning this game, and time to make a run. Miami just needs to play to a similar level as they played against Buffalo, and they should be fine the rest of the season to at least try and salvage this season. But all needs to start with the win against the Rams in a must-win situation. Give me Miami. Well, there you have it, my Week 10 predictions. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, you know the whole drill. Comment down below and the upsets you have this week. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.